Today, what I'd like to do is propose a new way of talking about forests that I hope will help to elevate forests to a much higher level of discourse when it comes to policy decisions, funding, and citizen support. We are winning battles here and there, but we are losing the war in this country, and we need a new narrative. And here it is. Forests as infrastructure. Forests as infrastructure. Not forests as wilderness, not forests as parks, not forests as sanctuaries for wildlife, or forests for recreation, not even forests as fiber supply, but forests as infrastructure. Just like our rail lines, fiber optic cables, the interstate highway system, I suggest that forests are an essential part of our nation's infrastructure, and we should start investing in them accordingly. Listen to what the writer for the New York Times, Peter Kilbourne, said about the nation's highways back in 2001. He wrote, "The 46,000-mile network of limited access roads that make up the interstate system is a linear economy on wheels, a distinct and self-sustaining 51st state, in a sense that generates life and commerce." What a marvelous description. A linear economy on wheels, a distinct and self-sustaining 51st state. Our nation's working forest should be considered our 52nd state, a self-sustaining 400 million acre economy in green that provides us with clean air to breathe, clean water to drink, carbon sinks to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, and a source of renewable energy, not to mention the more than 2 million jobs that depend on them. It is profoundly disturbing to see Congress's current treatment of infrastructure, branding all investments as wastes and ridiculing any program that contemplates investing for the future. This is government at its worst. Short-sighted and shallow. America cannot cut its way to greatness, and the private sector cannot shoulder alone the burden of rebuilding our critical infrastructure. These investments benefit us all. Clean air, clean water, energy independence, good jobs, and are precisely the kind of investments that we should be making right now. Congress's behavior reminds me of the time that the great Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson went on a camping trip. You didn't know they were outdoorsmen. After a good meal, they lay down for the night, and they went to sleep. Some hours later, Holmes awoke, and he nudged his faithful friend. Holmes said, "Watson, look up and tell me what you see." And Watson said, "Well, I see a fantastic panorama of countless stars." And Holmes said, "And what does that tell you?" Watson pondered a moment, and then, not wanting to disappoint his intellectually superior companion, he said, "Well, astronomically, it tells me that there are millions of galaxies and potentially billions of planets. Astrologically, I observe that Saturn is in Leo. Horologically, I deduce that the time is approximately 3:15. And meteorologically, I suspect that we will have a beautiful day tomorrow." "Why, Holmes? What does it tell you?" Holmes was silent for a moment, and then he spoke. "Someone has stolen our tent." You see, like Watson, we tend not to notice our infrastructure until we have a problem. As a nation, we didn't acknowledge that our bridges were crumbling until one fell into the Mississippi River. We didn't worry about the loss of 90% of the wetlands along the Louisiana coast until New Orleans was almost wiped out. And we didn't seem to care that our electrical grid was terribly outdated until the Northeast was blacked out. If it had been raining, Watson surely would have noticed his tent was gone. And we need to recognize the critical importance of working forests before they, too, are gone and the services they provide are no longer available. Consider the city of Atlanta. The city of Atlanta is the fastest growing human settlement in human history. The fastest growing human settlement in human history. The city of Atlanta, over the last 30 years, has cut down and paved over almost all of the forests that provided its groundwater recharge, the source of its drinking water. They didn't think twice about it until the drought of several years ago when they came within 90 days of running out of water. You don't think about running out of water in the East Coast. Atlanta came within 90 days of running out of water. Today, the city is buying up the very land that they cleared, paved over, and built subdivisions or shopping centers on. The city is buying up developed land, tearing out the pavement, and replanting forests at a cost of more than $500,000 an acre. They could have bought the forest in the first place for less than $500 an acre. Forests are infrastructure, and we need to start behaving that way. The good news is that most Americans have already accepted the fact that we need to invest mightily in our nation's infrastructure. In a recent national poll, a near unanimous 94% of Americans were concerned about our nation's infrastructure. 84% of the public wants more money spent to improve America's infrastructure. And here's the kicker. A majority of Americans said they were prepared to pay 1% more in taxes if that's what the money was used for. Farm bill is being debated as we speak. It is tens of billions of dollars. There are only 2 million farmers in the United States, and their clout is enormous. There are over 10 million private forest landowners in this country, and yet we command only a fraction of the nation's attention. We need to come together, as the farmers have, and speak with one voice about the need for strong markets for forest products, reducing regulatory risk, generating favorable tax policy, and dedicated public funding for forest conservation. Just yesterday, the House released its markup on appropriations for the Department of Interior, which includes the Forest Legacy Program, the single most successful program for protecting working forests in this country. They cut the entire budget to less than $100 million. It has never been that low since the inception of these programs in 1964. We need to reframe our conversations about forests to include water security, energy independence, jobs here at home that cannot be exported overseas. For these too are all part of national security. Forests as national security, forests as infrastructure.